Well, Ahmed Fahour, when you took over in 2010 as CEO of Australia Post, within 3 months you announced the Future Ready program to bring the company or the business into the digital era. It's now sort of halfway through that 5-year plan. Are you ahead of where you expected to be at that time?
I think we are exactly where we thought we would be, and I say that with a degree of modesty, in a sense of we had a very ambitious plan, and we wanted to achieve certain service outcomes, and we wanted to achieve certain business outcomes. What I would say to you is that on both the service and the community service outcomes, we've continued to kick the kinds of goals that this company has done for many, many years, and our predecessor was very focused on these. In terms of our financial results, we'd really done quite poorly in the preceding 3 to 4 years. That's in our annual reports and so forth. But I think the financial outcomes that we've produced are very strong in the last 2 years, and we're very proud of those. So overall, we're very pleased with where we are.
Did you have in mind at that time, when you took over and you set up this Future Ready program, that you'd be, say, buying Star Trek Express and going so strongly into B2B parcels?
We were very, very clear in that strategy early on that the future lied in digitising post, and that the online shopping world in e-commerce was a very large opportunity that was going to be presented to us as more and more Australians took on the convenience of being able to buy online. Secondly, in 2010, and a lot of people sort of are still quite amazed by this, and that's the first year that an iPad came on, where mobility was something that we started to experience. And only 2 years before that, in 2008, is when we had the first smartphones come onto the market. So when these new devices and new ways of interacting online were emerging in the Australian marketplace, very quickly e-commerce was going to be a wonderful opportunity, and we're a great beneficiary of that. So in our strategy of 2010, we laid out a digitisation plan, of which one key part was Parcels e-commerce, and we were quite focused on building up a world-class, high-service parcels business. Now, at that time, we weren't thinking that we were going to buy Star Trek. We were a partner in Star Trek. We've been in Star Trek as an investor for 7 years, but we certainly took a very keen interest and started to build Star Trek up.
Did you have to, as it were, change the mindset of Australia Post from being defensive and concerned about the internet and what it would do to its business to being in a position, in having a mindset to be able to take advantage of the opportunities? Was that a big part of your task?
You know, Alan, I think that's 100% correct. The reality is, any CEO would say to you, the single biggest challenge in leadership is culture change. The rest are actually quite easy, the strategy and getting things done. Well, easy is not the right word, it's hard work, but it's not as challenging as probably the single most important challenge, which is culture change, and getting a culture to come along. On the one hand, we were quite fortunate that many people in Post had seen the threat of the internet, and in a sense were willing to say, we need to change, we need to do things differently to survive, because our mail volumes are declining, and they could see the threats of the internet. What I think the new management team has done very successfully, actually, is to turn around and say, hang on, it's the same coin. On the one hand, you look at it as a threat to our traditional mail volume, which is true. It's caused our mail volume to decline even faster than what it has historically. But that other side of that coin is, this was our greatest opportunity, that the internet and the online world and the devices that came with that gave us the huge opportunity in digital mail, and they gave us a huge opportunity in online shopping and creating a new revenue stream and a profit stream. And history has shown that's right.
Did you have to change the management layer completely, or were you able to pick and choose? Did some people stay on? Did you replace others? And how did you go about doing that?
One of the things the board and myself and the chairman at the time, David Mortimer, and I spent a lot of time talking about is in transforming the organisation, that the first step that we were going to focus on was people and talent and culture. That was going to be our initial focus. And inside Australia Post, there were some very, very talented people, but we knew that the leadership team at the time, which were very successful in creating a world-class letters business, and they were considered world-class. Wherever I went around the world, people talked about Australia Post and what we've done in the mail area. One of the very few postal organisations whose mail business not only made money, but was considered world-class in service and in performance and efficiency and productivity. But that management team's interest and competency, and they had a lot of experience, was more towards the traditional core business rather than the new set of businesses. So we knew we had to change some of the management team. Now, where I look at my team today and I look at the top team, interestingly, most of the people who were in the leadership positions back then are not with us today. Most have retired and have left, because there was also quite an older group that were in there. And you look at the team that we have today, approximately 70% of the senior leadership team are actually existing Australia Post employees, but they were buried down in the bowels of the organisation, and 30% were new people that we brought into the company from all different corporations and different walks of life internationally and domestically. So we have a nice blend of internal promotions primarily, and we also have a nice blend of external. One of the things that is radically different compared to where it was where I started is, well, it's probably two things. One is the average age has come down fairly significantly of the senior leadership team. It's probably come down by an average of 10 years. But secondly, and I think very importantly, the executive committee had no women on it when I started, and today 40% of the executive team is women. And we've got some terrific women that have been promoted internally who have come up and of an age profile that understands some of the trends that we're talking about.
Has the fact that you're still owned by the government been a problem in terms of having to become more agile and more business oriented? Are you stuck in government processes that are holding you back?
No, I don't see that at all, Alan. I have to say it's probably been a good thing for us that we aren't publicly listed. One of the things, if you are publicly listed, that comes with that is more public profile. We don't have to stand in front of lots of analysts and do some of the things you do that I used to do in a public company. That's one of the advantages. One of the flip sides, though, is that when you are government owned, is in effect you're owned by all Australians, and they care about everything you do everywhere, because you are owned by the people of Australia. And that comes with that as a huge level of responsibility and accountability to talk to the community, to talk to a very large workforce, and to continue to explain what's going on. Right now, I've seen, at this moment, I can honestly say there's been no discernible disadvantage of being government owned, because everything that we've wanted to do, we've had an incredibly supportive set of shareholder ministers, very, very supportive in our strategy and in our transformation. You only had to look at the terrific media release that Senator Conroy put out, and the three ministers actually put out about our digital mailbox, and you can see how much not only are they supporting us in our change, but they're really championing it out there as much as possible.
Well, they're letting you make a $400 million acquisition, which is Star Trek Express.
That's not
bad.
That's, I think, proof of the pudding is in the eating.
But I suppose as you move more into contestable areas, Parcels, digital mailbox, which are not monopoly businesses like mail, there becomes less and less reason for the government to own you in the future, I imagine. Look,
that's been sort of the latest question, which is, it seems the more you're successful in our results, some people would ask the question, well, why are you then government owned?
Well, it's a fair question. I mean, Toll Holdings isn't government owned. You're just competing with them in the market for parcels.
Yeah, and we get no special privileges of being government owned. We have to compete like everybody else is. We have to win customers, we have to invest money, and we have to do all the things that anybody else does. But I think the question of competition and being able to compete and win isn't necessarily mean that then you don't have to be owned, your ownership structure has to be different. I mean, it is a government policy question. It's not something for me to answer. I mean, that's for the government to decide in there. But what I would say is that by virtue of our government ownership, doesn't give us any special privileges. We have to compete in the non-regulated business like everybody else does, and we have to go out there and make the best with our customers.
So as we said, you're halfway through the five-year plan now. What proportion of your revenue is now what you'd call digital related, like parcels and digital mailbox, which obviously just been launched? And what proportion do you think it'll be at the end of that 5 year time?
Oh, look, with the acquisition of the other 50% of Star Track, it is truly a transformational moment for us as Australia Post. I can actually say to you, right at this moment, for the first time in 203 years of Australia Post's history, we are now a bigger parcel company than we are a mail company. And even without the acquisition, even if that acquisition wasn't there, with the way the trajectory has been going, we would have been a bigger parcel company than a bigger mail company by next financial year. And so this transformation, this trend that's occurred in the last 2 to 3 years is truly phenomenal. That's the first comment I would make to you. And the second comment I would make to you about that is, inside the company, the level of profitability of parcels is such that we'd already become a parcels dominated company even 5 years ago compared to we are, because mail went from making a profit 10 years ago to 5 years ago essentially breaking even, and in the last 3 or 4 years has been losing a substantial amount of money. So the fact that we can still produce overall profit growth for the whole company while losing substantial amounts of money in mail is testimony to the growth and size and the performance of this great parcels business.
But you'll be overwhelmingly a parcels business in another 2.5 years, won't you?
Well, we are now, and we will be overwhelmingly a parcels and retail company because we have an extensive retail network as well.
Great talking to you, Ahmed. Thanks very much.
Absolutely, a pleasure to be here.